Good evening, fans of aviation from coast to coast. I am Jamie Beckett, AOPA Foundation. You can fly ambassador to the Eastern U.S. Right over there is Kay Sundrum, who is the ambassador on the West Coast. And down there, where he should be, because Texas is way down low, is Pat Brown, who handles the Central U.S. And tonight, while we're going to talk about a specific topic, as always, you can talk about whatever you want. Go ahead and put a question in the comments on anything having to do with aviation, Pat's hat, Kay's hairstyle, or my glasses, and we will answer that question. But tonight, we're going to focus on aviation in high school because, as you know, if you've been to an American high school in recent years, it's a place where thousands of teenagers gathered with minimal adult supervision. Most of the teachers and guidance counselors are huddled in the lounge for fear. And there's really not a whole lot going on at that school that's aeronautical in nature. But that is changing, and we're going to talk about it tonight. Kay, did you ever have any kind of aeronautical education experience as a formalized class or program when you were in high school?
We did not have a aviation or space related class per se. There was a lot of emphasis on aviation and space, but unfortunately we didn't have a class dedicated to it. However, we did have introduction to what's going on at the airport. And this was part of a month-long emphasis on careers. And we were in 7th grade. And if you wanted to become a doctor, you would have picked the medical track. You go to the hospital, meet doctors and nurses. If it was law enforcement or aviation was one of the choices. And so I signed up for that track. And so the emphasis that month was to learn all about aviation in that small group of people who selected that. And the greatest part of that was that they took us to the airport, which was Brookhaven Airport in Long Island, New York. That's where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And
I think it's pronounced Long Island.
Long Island, I don't have an accent. And boy, was that a game changer for me, just going to the airport. And we were going to get glider lessons, but the weather was bad. And so that part was scrapped. However, that trip was very, very influential on me because I had not had an exposure to aviation. I've always was intrigued by it. And maybe that started with the Jetsons. Yes, the cartoon, the Jetsons. And so that was about my real exposure to that industry. But going to the airport, I learned quite a bit on that one trip. And then I had, parents that were very supportive. But no, we did not have a class, but that career month really made a huge difference. And then there were some other trips at that time. Grumman Aerospace, many of you might know now, it's Northrop, and they were very influential in the aerospace industry at that time. This was the late 80s. They were literally in our backyard. So we had a trip to Grumman and some other places. So that, I got to say, was really that real world experience is what I considered my introduction to aviation. It wasn't a class, but it was that trip to the airport.
I did my very first ground school in Sunnyside, Queens, right across the street from Grumman. So that's cool. We had a connection. Pat, how about you? When you were in school, I don't want to mention the year because I'm compassionate like that. But did they have any kind of an aerospace thing in your high school?
Oh, when I was in school, they had just barely invented the wheel, Jamie. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. No, actually, I wasn't quite as lucky as Kay. I amused myself by making paper airplanes in math class and throwing them out the 4th floor window until the teacher, saw me do it one day and I had to quit. So no, I didn't have anything like that at all. I grew up in a town of 7,000 people. We had an airport. They did skydiving on weekends and we would go out and watch that. But my interest in aviation dates back way, way before that. And we don't have nearly enough time to talk about all of that, but not in school. It was all just other influences, other resources.
That is interesting. I went to what was considered a really good high school. I lived in a small agricultural town in central Connecticut. Candace Bushnell, who wrote the book that became Sex and the City, was in my class. So that was kind of the environment, but we had no aviation at all. And I don't think it was intentional. It's just nobody ever thought of it. And that's changing. Luckily, Rebecca, our spectacular producer, can you put up that picture of the 4 smiling faces I sent you earlier? There is Aviation High School in Central Florida. Actually, there are 2 of them: Central Florida Aerospace Academy Lakeland, and now Central Florida Aerospace Academy Winter Haven. That girl on the left is Denira Richardson. She's just about to take her check ride, started doing aviation stuff at Winter Haven High. Next to her is Alex Brown. He is also getting ready to get his check ride. He's in the same class. Madison Fletcher on the right wants to be a medevac pilot. She's training in Bartow. And that big smiling guy in the middle is Brian Hughes. He's their high school teacher. He actually gets so excited about being able to teach aeronautics, a STEM class in high school. He went and got his license. And the 3 kids are all scholarship recipients. So there really is a change going on now. And to prove it, that it's not just my imagination, I'd like to bring in a couple other AOPA folks who are kind of sharp. And by the way, for those of you watching on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and put just me in the comments if your high school ever had an aviation thing. But let's bring in Eric Yates and the fabulous Glenn Ponis, because they're the real brains behind this. I mean, yeah, the ambassadors are the pretty faces. We are undoubtedly the cool ones. But Eric and Glenn really know how to make things work. Eric, introduce yourself in a nutshell and tell us basically what you do having to do with high school aviation.
Well, thanks, Jamie. So I'm Eric Yates. I'm the Director of Curriculum Development here at the AOPA Foundation. And my job is to look at the curriculum and write the curriculum and make the lessons interesting and engaging and fun, and work with teachers and sometimes students, to help them figure things out, find good ways to teach topics, and, just overall keep the curriculum interesting and fun. And one of the reasons I love doing it so much is that I spent over 25 years in the classroom as a STEM teacher or a physics teacher or a administrator for STEM, both here in the US and overseas. And all that while, I was also a flight instructor. I got bitten by the flying bug in high school myself. And, what a great job to be able to pull both of those things together.
I love that. How about you, Glenn? What's your excuse? What makes you get up in the morning and go to work and deal with high school at this age? You just got muted, Glenn. I love technical stuff. Oh, Mary Martin is in here. It says Savannah has a flight operations pathway at our career and technical high school. I would be interested in finding out more about that, Mary. That would be pretty cool. I'm impressed. Pat, you want to jump in there and ask a question or two?
Yeah. As long as we're talking to Eric and while Glenn's trying to sort out his audio issues, just in a nutshell, tell us about the AOPA STEM curriculum, exactly what it is.
So the AOPA Foundation STEM curriculum is, or the official name, are you ready for this? I hope we have enough time. It's the AOPA Foundation High School Aviation STEM curriculum. It's at its, in total, a 4-year curriculum and 4-year career and technical education program. We've got courses that introduce students to aviation in a really exciting and fun way in the first year. It's kind of like a survey course or an introduction to aviation. And then we have a couple of years where the students are learning all the nuts and bolts that they need to be good pilots, whether they're pilots of typical manned aircraft or they're pursuing a career as a remote pilot. And then that final year, in 12th grade, we have the students looking at advanced topics. And the best part is that final semester where they're in a capstone project where they get to pick a topic that they really love in aviation and dive deeply into it, pursue it with all their heart and soul, and then tell about it at a special event at the end of the year.
Yeah, it sounds. Glenn, have you got your audio worked out yet? No, still not. Well, all right, Eric. Well, we're going to stay with you for just a couple of minutes here. So,
Sounds good.
gotta love live television. So, what can I tell you? So this actually sounds like really special. How does this compare, or does it compare to any other STEM programs that might be out there in the world, aviation or otherwise?
We were just talking about this today, actually, Pat, around the office, and it doesn't. This really didn't exist, and that's why. Oh gosh, I guess it was back around 2015 or so. Mark Baker and some of the other folks that were at AOPA at the time were saying, there just isn't a high school aviation curriculum, like a real solid, rigorous, academically oriented, standards-based curriculum. Let's make one. And they did. And, there's some things floating around out there. There's some small units of study in aviation that teachers can use for a portion of the year, or maybe they can do like a semester survey of aviation, which is great. But, we've got it all. We cover not only everything from, Icarus and Daedalus all the way up through Artemis, but also, all the careers that a student can pursue in aviation. Do we want them to be pilots? You bet. But there are so many other jobs in the world of aviation. Like, we're always telling people, if you can think of a job, it exists in the world of aviation. And, one of my favorites, honestly, it's kind of a joke around the office, is interior designer, right? You've got a student who wants to be an interior decorator. What could they possibly do in aviation? Well, think about the interior of private jets. Wouldn't you love to work with the wealthiest of society and beautiful new equipment, picking exotic materials out and, designing exquisite chairs and staterooms?
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. Pat and I have a mutual friend who's a drummer, and his wife designs interiors for Dassault jets.
There you go.
And she used to manage a rock and roll club. So, I mean, you can make a career change later, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Kay, what's on your mind this evening? What would you like to discuss?
Well, Eric and Glenn, I'd like to ask you guys. I know this program has grown significantly since the start, and not that long ago. How many schools are using the curriculum right now?
Well, let's see. Glenn, how are you doing on your audio? Do we have you back?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Outstanding.
So that question is for Glenn. So how many schools are using?
And that's
the
a perfect
curriculum?
question for Glenn. He's the director of outreach, and he knows everything about our program by the numbers. He is a data guy. He is a teacher. Glenn, tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for that, Eric. So again, my name is Glenn Ponis. I am the director of high school outreach. My background is 32 years in the Pittsburgh Public Schools as a teacher, administrator, ran my own aviation program for 20 years there prior to coming to the AOPA Foundation. My role in the AOPA Foundation and the high school initiative in particular is to grow the footprint of the use of the curriculum. So where Eric builds this incredible curriculum and has these incredible professional development experiences for the teachers, my role is to make sure that as many students as possible gain access to that. So it's a great question, Kay, because as we look to the past 6 or 7 years, last year, we were in 322 schools. This year, we are actually in over 400 schools across the United States. We have over 500 teachers teaching the curriculum. You can see some real huge pockets there. So if you look at that little area north of Texas that they call Oklahoma, Oklahoma, for example, has 59 schools in the curriculum in and of itself. The red schools are schools that have renewed, and a whole bunch of new schools for this current year. What we're really excited about, though, is not just the fact that we have 400 schools, 1,200 classes, but we have 15,000 students, if not more, in the curriculum at this point. And what we're really proud of in that is it's not just the students, but it's the makeup of those students. So if we were to look at the demographics of the students, and Rebecca, that would probably be the next slide, I think. What we're really proud about is that the students look like America. I mean, we know what the industry looks like. We know the demographic makeup of the industry, and this is certainly not the demographic makeup of the industry. We are 50% white, 50% students of color, and we are 22% female. Now, Kay, that is not good enough, but it is far better than the industry standard, and we look forward to continue to see that grow. And so again, really very excited about how this is growing, and it's growing across a whole bunch of different areas. We are in urban, rural, suburban schools. Almost half of our schools are schools that are what are called school-wide Title I, and that means that more than 50% of the students receive free and reduced lunch. So it is not what you normally would think of when you think of aviation, because these are the kinds of students, these are the kinds of schools that kids don't even know that aviation exists, and we're able to reach out and bring aviation to those students and bring them to these meaningful careers.
So, Glenn,
Eric,
how does a?
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's you, Kay. Do
I
it.
was going to ask, how does a school typically gain access to our curriculum? Can you talk about that?
Well, it's a very simple process. We have a simple online form, aopa.org/apply. It's that simple. You type it in. A school fills out about a 5-minute long application. They give us a little bit of information about the school. They define a point of contact. They submit that information. We check it. We approve them, and at that point, a school administrator has to sign a short agreement saying, yes, we are offering this. We are offering it for credit, because that's one of the important things here. This is not an after-school program. This is actually for credit, and whether that is STEM credit or career technical education credit, or in the case of Oklahoma, for example, actual core credit towards graduation. So the school has to tell us that they're in agreement with it. The teacher fills out a brief form saying, yes, I'm teaching these courses. Once all of that is done, we give them access to the curriculum. We send them over to Eric for the curriculum development, and he works his magic, and the school begins with the curriculum. And they can pick any one of those 6 courses or any combination thereof in any given year.
Yeah, so the online process is pretty simple, huh?
It is. It's about total 10 minutes of time.
Right.
For the school.
That's so cool. Eric, I think this is for you, but I'm not positive. So Glenn, jump in if it's you. Aviation has a reputation of being extraordinarily expensive, and there is some cost to it, although I maintain it doesn't have to be prohibitively expensive. When a school signs up and says, I want to get in on this, when for their student body, do they have to allocate a certain amount of funding, or is there equipment they have to buy, or is there anything special that might not be apparent when they first get the idea?
No.
Simple answer.
The best thing about this curriculum is that because aviation is an amazing business industry hobby, the pilots are generous, really generous, and we have very generous donors that make this curriculum free to schools to use. Now, that being said, of course, there's some costs. You got to pay the teacher, right? So there's that. What about the amazing hands-on activities that we have that go along with all of our lessons? We're always having students doing something, right? That's got to be expensive, right? You got to get specialized equipment. It's airplanes after all, right? No, we didn't go that route. We went the route of Dollar General, Walmart, Home Depot, the supermarket, the rest of your school, all the materials that a school would need to run a class for a year are available locally. Pretty much anywhere you can find toothpicks, paper, wires, these kinds of things. And we generally find schools are spending, budgeting around $1,500 to $2,000 a year for materials, but that's maximum. That's like starting from scratch. Like I said, a lot of times materials already exist in the school. Now, do you need specialized equipment like flight simulators? That's a big one we hear a lot about. And the fact is, no. We've crafted this curriculum in such a way that a school doesn't need to have simulators to make the magic happen. Now, of course, most schools really want to have simulators, and to help schools that do have simulators, we have simulator supplements in the lesson plans, so teachers can use those activities with their students in the simulators. And we even recently had Redbird, which is well known in the simulator space, take a look at one of the years of our curriculum and create a whole booklet full of activities that students on any simulator can do in conjunction with our curriculum.
Maybe we should send the ambassadors out to teach them all how to chair fly. What do you think, Kay?
Oh, I love
idea. Good idea.
Well, I'm curious to know, what about the homeschoolers? Glenn, can you tell us about how homeschoolers, like, or private schools or charter schools, how can they gain access to the curriculum?
It's what we've been able to do with this is our funders have set, and these are our donors, right? They have asked for several things for us. First of all, that a school or entity, and when I say entity, I will include public school, private school, charter schools, homeschool cooperatives. We even have museums that are teaching this, as long as they meet some basic criteria. And the first criterion is that they need to be able to offer this for high school credit of some kind. Of course, homeschools do that, right? They offer high school credit, as do all of the other entities that I described. They need to be able to provide 5 students for each of the grade level classes that they offer. And so if they can meet those essential requirements, then they get access to the curriculum. We have a number of homeschool co-ops across the United States that are utilizing this. There are some in the Ocala, Florida area. Interestingly enough, the Mississippi Wing of Civil Air Patrol is actually utilizing it wing-wide as an online charter school environment. They will be implementing it this upcoming year, and so we want to make sure that we are inclusive in this. So whether it be a museum that is able to put together a relationship with with a number of regional school districts, and they may offer it on a Saturday, and students may be there for 3.5 to 4 hours on a Saturday. As long as those students are getting the high school credit for it, it works. We have a number of 501c3s or nonprofit organizations that will be utilizing it in the upcoming year. So we're really flexible about this, because ultimately, as long as they meet the basic criteria, we want to make sure that every student who we can possibly gain access to this curriculum and these kinds of resources and these kinds of experiences, we want to make sure that they have access to it. So we will work with any group. Just give us a call, let us know.
I think that flexibility is absolutely wonderful. We're really allowing just about any entity to get involved with this. Eric, can you talk to us about the guidance and assistance that we provide to the teachers using the study materials?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's, I think, one of the hallmarks, honestly, of our curriculum. So it really all starts at the very beginning. Once a school has gone through the application process and the teacher is ready to get started, we offer 2 kinds of professional development for them, training. Because a lot of times we have teachers who were frankly voluntold that they're going to teach an aviation course, and maybe they didn't have any background in aviation, or maybe not even an interest, but they said, okay, that sounds cool, I'll give it a shot, and they're willing and they're passionate about doing a great job with this STEM topic. So they could do a couple of things. They could, for free, take our online virtual training, which we've won 7 Academy Awards and had 3 Academy nominations for already. But we've gotten lots of great responses from the online training. So that's been a wonderful thing for us, because we have such a wide reach, right, across the country. If teachers want to visit with us in person for teacher training workshops, we do that over the course of about 3 days. This past year, we had a session in Frederick, Maryland, here at home base, and we were also fortunate enough to have Oklahoma host us for a session. So teachers get at these sessions the opportunity to be the student. They get their hands on the activities. They go through the activities that their students will be doing. They get to learn about aviation in the hands-on way that we intended. Now, once they get started with the curriculum, which they love because it's so comprehensive and so easy for a teacher to just jump right in and start teaching with, they might come up with a question. They might be stumped with something. They might be unsure about something. They call us. They email us. They contact us through our Facebook group. We are there. We, the people who are teachers and flight instructors and pilots, the writers of the curriculum, get to interact with them and answer their questions and help them out. And that's one of the things I like.
There's no charge for that, huh?
Nope.
Right?
Free.
Wow.
And Eric didn't even mention the fact that the teachers and the students, because one of the great things about this curriculum, about AOPA in general, is that any student from the age of 13 to 18 can get a free high school membership. to AOPA. And we also provide to our teachers access to almost all the resources that are available to our members. So if you think about the Pilot Information Center, if you think about calling member services, right? The ability to call, if one of us isn't available to answer the phone or to answer an email, the fact that they can call the Pilot Information Center and talk to a CFI and say, what is this weight and balance thing, right, that I'm struggling with? And the students also have access to that, as well as all of the ASI, the Air Safety Institute. So essentially, all of these resources we leverage all of the resources of AOPA to support the teachers and the students. And it's not just, and I want to add to that, it's not just the support for the teachers during beginning and during their time utilizing the curriculum. Let's go all the way back to that time when a school or a district is sitting there saying, God, we'd really love to do something like this, but we don't have the first idea on how to do it. We actually spend a good bit of time, and this is the outreach side does a lot of this, is we spend time speaking with individuals, speaking with school district teams, engaging in strategic planning, trying to walk schools through what are some of the best practices and what are their goals. So all of that comprehensive planning from the very beginning are things that we support as just part of what we do. And we see the best work happening in schools, where schools work with outside entities. So whether it be the Civil Air Patrol Squadron, whether it be the EAA chapter, they bring them to the table and they begin that planning process together. So it actually starts well before those teachers ever get involved in the curriculum. It's that comprehensive support from the very beginning moving forward that we see as some of the best success in schools across the United States.
Yeah. That's very cool. Glenn, since you seem to have such a hard time articulating things, I would like to stay with you for just one quick question. And then, Eric, I'm going to follow up for you. Just this past week, you guys were in Memphis, I believe. And after we're done with this, I want to know if you checked out those hot spots I recommended to you. But tell us a little bit about the symposium that we do every year that's aimed at the really to the folks that teach our class.
Well, Pat, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And no, we had a wonderful time in Memphis. We were at the Peabody Memphis Hotel. It was a 3-day conference. It was, let me get the official title correct. It was the 8th annual 2022 FedEx AOPA Foundation High School Aviation STEM Symposium presented by Boeing. It was an opportunity for over 425 people from across the United States to come together. And those were teachers and administrators who currently use the curriculum. But a lot more teachers and administrators who are coming to learn about it and potentially say, what can we do? Is this something that we can utilize in our district? And it brought together aviation industry experts. We had over 45 vendors, I want to say, from all different walks of life, whether they be the aviation simulator companies, universities, the United States Air Force. It was a great mix. And during those 3 days, they all got to interact. They all got to work with each other. They saw some incredible speakers. So we were at the FedEx Experience our very first day. So FedEx was gracious enough to host us at their facility in Memphis. The teachers got to tour the facility. They got to play with the sims. They have 30 sims at $30 million a piece, the full motion sims. They got to see those. They got to hear from Don Dillman, the head of FedEx, the senior vice president of FedEx operations. And just to hear what it was like to run what was essentially one of the largest airlines in the world. People don't realize that's what FedEx does. But the whole opportunity was to learn. If they were coming there and they already are utilizing the curriculum, the question was, how do they grow the curriculum? How do they do that outreach to the community? How do they build new programs? And if they were new to the curriculum, it was, what does it look like? And what are some of the ways we start? And what are some of the things we need to think about? But the best part of it was that interaction, teachers being able to work with each other. We had over 60 speakers, the vast majority of which were our own teachers and administrators who were telling their stories and sharing their insight with respect to how they utilize the curriculum and how they grow. It was for me, it was my first symposium, and it was a life-changing experience for me. And I know it was for a lot of the people who attended as well.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of them, and I got to tell you, I mean, I don't have an educational background other than the fact that I'm a flight instructor. So, I have that, but I don't have any real classroom instruction time. But just hearing the enthusiasm of the attendees and the vendors who saw some value in supporting what we're doing. Eric, tell me a little bit about the feedback that we get from our teachers and how they see this and the success levels that they're seeing with our program.
I'm always afraid to look at survey results, because I'm always nervous. What did we do wrong? What did we mess up? What do we have to fix? I have yet to have that happen for real. I mean, honestly, the feedback has just blown me away with positivity. The teachers are so grateful for everything they get in this curriculum, from syllabus to lesson plans to presentations to student activities to answer keys to assessments, all of that. And that's just the curriculum itself. When they come to events like our teacher training workshops, they are blown away by the professionalism of our presentations. They are thrilled to be active and learning while they're doing. They have fun. We've got teachers launching hot air balloons and throwing gliders at each other and going through flying drones through obstacle courses. It's a fun experience, and they love it. And then we were at, Glenn talked about symposium, just walking around. Everybody that I met was hand on the shoulder. I can't believe you guys are doing this. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I met so many teachers. I met so many vendors. I got so much stuff I want to bring back to my students. We've been so fortunate to work with great, enthusiastic teachers who are so supportive of us. I don't have enough good things to say.
Yeah.
Symposium to me,
I just go ahead, Glenn.
I was going to say symposium to me. Eric ran a room, and it was the lab room, and there we had a bunch of activities out that the students do, and the teachers were actually engaging them. And while Eric supervised that room, Eric did very little. And why? Because our veteran teachers were there working with the teachers, and these teachers were playing, and they were building electrical circuits, and they were testing airfoils in the MacGyvered wind tunnel, right? That the kids build. And the excitement was palpable when they were able to complete a project. They're high-fiving each other. They're jumping up and down. They're hugging the teachers who are the presenters. It was spectacular to see. And I think what they got out of that was they recognized that if they were that kind of excited about it, they were going to see that same excitement in their kids.
Yeah. One of the things that I really liked when I first got a look at this thing, you hear about an aviation curriculum, and maybe the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, they're going to tell me that the Wright brothers first flew in 1903, and Glenn Curtis did this, and then somebody else did that, and it becomes just basically a history course in aviation. And as I was looking at the syllabus when I started seeing those things come through, you mentioned the wind tunnel. Glenn, and that's what caught my eye, is there's actually some plans in there to build a wind tunnel, and there's plans in there for airfoils and suggestions on how you can change the shape of the airfoil and calculate how much or more or less efficient it is. And this is a really serious thing. I think it's just about the coolest thing that I've seen in a long time.
Thanks. One of the things that we've seen happening bit by bit now over the years is that schools are starting to offer these courses for legitimate science credit in schools. Like Oklahoma, for example, recently they were granted permission by the state to make this a true science credit earning course because of everything that you mentioned, Pat. We've got alignment with next generation science standards. We've got alignment with Common Core standards in math and reading. We've got alignment with even FAA standards where they fit in too. When your pilot certificate candidates are going through all the items in the ACS, Pat, we're trying to apply those same standards to the lessons that we give the students.
Yeah.
This is all so cool. I'm really impressed. Now, Eric, if I understand this correctly, grade 9, this is kind of a unified thing, a general aviation, how it works. And as it goes along, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, it splits off into either manned flight or unmanned flight. Is that where this goes, or is there something else beyond that? Or what do you see in the future for this?
Well, as a pilot organization, we do like focusing on the pilot side of things, whether it's traditional aircraft flying or remote flying, and that's how those things develop over the next 5, 10, many more years will be how we have to change things. For example, one of the things that's in the works is a kind of pilot certificate for things like the eVTOL that we're seeing, with Joby and all that. Right now, there isn't a pilot certificate for that. What's that going to look like? And what will our students be training for in a few years from now? So we'll definitely be adapting. We have a revision process where we keep abreast of changes in the rules and regulations and technology developments. So we'll be moving with the times as we go forward.
I love it. Glenn, I'm going to ask you to correlate 2 entirely different things into one cohesive answer. So prepare yourself.
Give it to me. I'm ready. You
guys just came off a successful symposium. You showed us that graphic earlier that the program is nationwide, over 15,000 students, doing great. Do you see this as the endpoint? Have you got the market penetration you want, or do you see expansion? And this is the correlation part. What about flight scholarships? Because the whole point of this, gets kids up through their knowledge test. Is there a scholarship program that allows kids that have the desire but not the means to follow up outside of the classroom and turn this into a real life experience?
No, absolutely, Jamie. When you look at how the curriculum is structured and you see the flow, the whole purpose of this, and as we've mentioned, there are 2 pathways. There's the pilot and the unmanned or drone pilot pathway. Having said that, though, it is preparation for aerospace careers. So when we see our first graduation cohort, for example, that happened this past year, our first 12th grade group that graduated, and we see close to 1,200 students that graduated, fully 58% of them decided that they wanted to go into some kind of aviation career. That's a huge number when you think about it. And when you break that out further, that's 33% becoming pilots, or 1 in 3. But then it was approximately 13 to 16% were looking to aerospace engineering. Another 13% were looking to become an aviation mechanic, and then another 9% in other related careers. So when we look at this program, it is all about getting kids prepared for one or more of those careers. And we like to make sure that they have those options that are available. And so we do that in 2 ways. One of the ways that we do that is we work very closely with the career technical education standards across the United States. And so when we talk about the fact that we prepare students for pilot careers, one of the ways we do that is that the students are prepared to take that private pilot knowledge test. Or the remote pilot knowledge test, or in many cases, they get both of those tests completed before they complete high school. Now, why is that important as it ties into scholarships? You might ask, Jamie, and my answer would be that the AOPA Foundation has been blessed with a number of incredible donors that have literally put their money where their mouth is, and recognition that, as you mentioned before, as much as possible, we want to make sure that that aviation is available. And getting paying to become a private pilot is expensive. I just got my private pilot certificate in 2014. I am not a natural pilot, and it was quite a challenge, and considerably more than even average, because I am not a young buck, and it took me a long time. But the AOPA Foundation, through the generous donations of people like the Ray Foundation, for example, we have this upcoming year, there's approximately $1 million in flight training scholarships that are going to be made available to high school students and high school teachers. And that's split out as follows. There's approximately 80 $10,000 scholarships that are going to be available to any high school student in the United States. There are some criteria, and you can see on the screen, aopa.org/scholarships is the place to look for that. And the application is actually open now. But it's open to any high school student. I believe they have to be 15 as of the last day, as of February 10th. And the other thing that has to happen there, and this is the buy-in, is that it's important. They need to have completed their private pilot knowledge test, and that is the primary criteria. So if they meet those two criteria, they are able to apply for that scholarship. That's a large number of scholarships. And in addition, and this is a special emphasis for our AOPA Foundation curriculum schools. So if you're sitting out there thinking to yourself, as a teacher, sitting here saying, "God, this would be great to do, but I don't fly." Well, I can tell you that I was not a pilot for the first 14 years that I taught aviation in high school, and in fact, only 35% of our 500 teachers are pilots, certificated pilots. But there are 20 $10,000 scholarships available, and they are open to AOPA Foundation curriculum teachers who have not yet gotten their private pilot certificate. So again, the funders have said that this is important. The foundation has said that it is important, and we make sure that we provide as many opportunities as we can. And both of those scholarship windows are open until February 10th, so don't forget to apply.
That's great information, Glenn. You know, we had in this last group of scholarship winners, excuse me, we had 140 scholarships that we awarded in this last year, 120 the year before. And one of the real great joys I have in what I do for AOPA is to mentor those scholarship winners. They all have my contact information. They all have all of our contact information, all three of us, and we are all there to mentor them through the process. We have, I think the number is 47 out of the 140 this year have achieved their private pilot certificate. We've got a couple that have achieved their flight instructor certificate, and a couple that have achieved their commercial pilot certificate, and a couple that have achieved their instrument rating. So it's not just primary training that these things can benefit. So it's an amazing program and an amazing opportunity if these kids and teachers want to apply for the scholarship money. They should do it.
A great story from the symposium. We had a gentleman who is teaching the curriculum for the first time from Fordham Prep in the middle of the Bronx. Dr. Raymond, Dr. G. Gonzalez, who came to the symposium for the first time. He's in his first year, and he was a scholarship recipient, an AOPA Foundation scholarship recipient. And he talked about how life-changing it was for him, just not only personally, but to be able to share the journey of getting his private pilot certificate with his students and to have them follow along. And I can also attest to that firsthand. When your students are watching that, you are going through the same struggles that they're going through. And when you're trying to read a METAR and you're sitting there going, what does BR minus BR stand for? What does all this mean? And your kids are sitting there going, and is, you know, hey, Dr. G, why can't you struggling with this just like me? Yes, I am. And that's important because we want students to be able to recognize that learning not only is learning how to fly, something that anyone can do, even, my goodness, a high school teacher, but it's a lifelong learning experience. And we talk about that as pilots, right? That you get your certificate and it's your certificate to learn. And we want our students to be able to see that. So the more teachers that are able to share that journey along with their students is a truly remarkable experience.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Hey, Pat, we got a question here from Cavalier 102.5, who is a regular viewer, but I think this is right up your alley. He's asking, and again, I'm pretty sure Cavalier 102.5 is a he, but how long is the knowledge test valid for after you take it and successfully complete it? That's you. You're a DPE. What do you think?
Yeah, assuming that he's talking about the knowledge test, it would be 24 calendar months, not 2 years, but 24 calendar months. That, believe it or not, in FAA world, that is different. 24 calendar months.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, Kay, I stepped on you, but I had to do it.
That's okay. I was just going to say, gentlemen, we've been talking about the high school program all this time for 9th to 12th grade. I would like to know about younger than ninth grade because I myself I started in middle school, and so I'd like to know, Eric, can this high school curriculum be adapted to the middle school environment, and are there plans that you're currently considering for that option?
Well, as Glenn said a while ago, we have certain expectations that we have to meet from the donors, and one of them is that the curriculum is offered by high schools exclusively for high school credit. Now, there are a couple of instances where some high schools might have eighth grade within the high school, and there's an opportunity for those eighth graders to take the courses. That's fine because they're earning high school credit in cases like that. We actually have some one or two schools, I believe, that have kind of an articulation agreement, if you will, with their middle schools. So a select few middle schoolers can take high school courses. Again, they're earning some high school credit. So that's really important. And P.S. I did say articulation agreements. I don't think we're going to want to skip that. Glenn's got a lot to say about that, which is unusual that Glenn has a lot to say about anything. But so we would love to move into the middle school area. That would be really cool. It's a different animal though than high school. In middle school they have units of study, right? You don't spend an entire year on an aviation curriculum necessarily. But one of the things that we have found is that many of the other amazing aviation organizations out there, like the Commemorative Air Force or Civil Air Patrol, right? They've got a wealth of materials available for teachers in the middle school and elementary school arenas. So we do try to steer schools that are looking for aviation materials at those levels to organizations like that to really get the students ready and amped up for when they get to high school and can be a part of our curriculum.
I like it. I'm going to throw this out to both of you because I'm curious about the symposium that just happened in Memphis. I went to the first one, which was in Lakeland, Florida, and it was amazing, but it was the first one. The program was relatively small, and I participated in a couple during the COVID era where they were virtual. But you guys got to go this year in Memphis and meet people face to face. What's the average attendee like? Is that a teacher? Is it an administrator? Is it somebody who's teaching the course or is thinking about teaching the course? What's your experience with who you meet there? And what's the benefit of being face to face in the room for them?
Right. They are the smartest, most beautiful people on the planet that come to our symposium, honestly. And they love being there. One of I think Glenn alluded to this earlier, the opportunity to network with other educators at all different levels is really important. We get a wide range of people. We get superintendents, we get board members, we get principals, directors of curriculum, and teachers. Glenn can probably give you a better breakdown on the percentages of those. But Glenn was mentioning the workshop earlier where the teachers had to actually work on the hands-on activities from the lessons. The one he said where I didn't do anything. And as I was watching the interactions, and this was the magic. This is why I really wanted teachers from around the country being our ambassadors at Symposium. The opportunity for attendees to have the one-on-one conversations with authentic teachers. These are real live teachers, and find out, what's this really like? Is it everything they're saying it is? Is it really that easy? Can anybody actually do this? Is it fun? Are the kids engaged? And then they hear from teachers who are, in the weeds with they're in the trenches with the students saying, yes, absolutely. Sign up today. It is as amazing as everyone says it is. That's the best part. They need that validation. They need that personal touch, and they get it at Symposium.
I like that. And Glenn, can you weave into that same question the multisyllabic term articulation agreements and what bearing they might have on interacting with people there?
I sure can, Jamie. So one of our long-term goals here is to make sure that students are not just completing a high school curriculum and they're leaving high school and that's the end of it, right? We want to make sure that they have pathways, and whether those pathways are direct to a job or a career in aviation, or whether it is to some post-secondary education that gets them into a different career, that's critically important to us. So one of the things that we do is we work very closely with schools that have an interest in building pathways to two-year colleges, four-year universities, and other post-secondary programs, whether that be pilot programs, flight training programs in their community, Part 61 or 141 programs, collegiate aviation programs, or even maintenance programs, Part 147 programs. And so one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time with schools helping them build those specific arrangements. And there's two ways to do this. It's articulation agreement and it's dual enrollment. So think of it this way. A student can be in high school and enrolled simultaneously in a high school and a college and be earning college credit for those. Or they can have an agreement where when they finish our courses and they finish high school and they go to a specific school, they can gain credit for those courses upon arrival there. And that's the difference between those two. What's incredible about this curriculum is that currently 63 colleges in 21 states offer some sort of post-secondary credit for the AOPA curriculum, including in the state of Florida, Polk University, which is not terribly far from you, Jamie, where any AOPA Foundation curriculum student in the state of Florida, if they were to take what we call our grades 10 and 11 classes and pass their private pilot or drone pilot knowledge test, they are automatically awarded 12 credits upon matriculation to Polk University. And that is for essentially all of the ground school components of the aviation program. So we want to make sure that students are not just finishing a program and going, what do I do next? And that was one of the key things. And that is growing this year. We're already working on articulation agreements or these kinds of agreements at the state level in a number of states, and hope to be able to make an announcement on some of those fairly soon.
Very cool. Pat Brown, you and I went to high school 50 years too early. I think that's without a doubt.
Yeah, that is for darn sure. Eric, if I were a parent or teacher or administrator or just anybody that was maybe a homeschooler or what have you, a museum director who was interested in having this curriculum available to me, what's going to be your best advice to get more information on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Pat. You want to go to aopa.org/curriculum. That's aopa.org/curriculum. curriculum. Curriculum. aopa.org/curriculum. That's our website where you're going to find a wealth of information. Everything you want to know about our curriculum at the outset is going to be there. And the best part is that for anyone who's actually in school, teachers, administrators, curriculum developers and directors, we've got samples of full lesson plans, presentations, student activities, assessments for every semester of every grade. So if you're not sure that we're telling the truth about how comprehensive and detailed this is, the proof is in the pudding, and it's right there at aopa.org/curriculum.
You took the words right out of my. I was going to ask you, would you give us that address one more time?
You mean aopa.org/curriculum? Why, of course.
That's the one, the aopa.org/curriculum. That's the one that I wanted you to give us twice. All right.
You guys should be making commercials. There's no doubt about it. Hey, Eric, I noticed in the background there, you've got a Saturn V rocket, which is my era. And I was lucky enough to watch the Artemis launch from my front yard the other day. You got a couple airplanes behind you there. I see the word fly on a poster. I'm guessing you have an actual interest in aviation. It's not just the curriculum at that address. I'm sure you'll say again, but since you're actively involved in writing the curriculum, is there a particular part of it that you take real pride in or that you gravitate towards?
That's a good question, Jamie. And I don't know if there's a specific part. What I like the most is the constructivist learning, the learning by doing. when we were talking before the show, about how when I was getting my private pilot certificate, I would come to the airport on the days I wasn't flying, and I'd sit in this little room with this, little projector box and watch a film strip about, all the topics I needed to know, to pass my exam. And honestly, I was nodding off all the time, right? Because, I'm just listening to some voice monotonous on a tape, going through all the topics. I'm amazed I got through it. This is completely the opposite. The students are getting the information they need. They're working with it. They're building things. They're testing things. They're having a blast. Sometimes literally, but it's so much fun. I mean, we're flying model planes. We're flying simulators. We're launching hot air balloons. We're building and testing airfoils in wind tunnels. It's a class where you get up and you do stuff. How often do you have that? I love that.
Yeah.
I think in all honesty, if when I was 15, 16, 17 years old in high school, if there had been an aviation class, a STEM class where I could get hands-on like this, get involved, and the school was encouraging me to go ahead and visit the local airport because it's probably a municipal facility. There's likely a restaurant or at least a soda machine. You can go watch planes take off and land. It would have changed everything for me. And I think it probably would for a whole lot more people. So, Eric, Glenn, thank you so much for what you do for the foundation, for all those high school kids. And I just know with the quality of this program and the vitality you guys demonstrate and the team behind you, this is just going to grow and get bigger and become more successful. So thank you so much for being a part of this conversation tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for inviting us. It's been a pleasure to be among such famous people. Thank you, Ambassador.
It is.
Well,
And good luck. Good luck.
Glenn and Eric, I wanted to ask you both, do you have a personal goal that relates to the curriculum? I mean, Glenn, is there a certain number of schools or students that you're hoping to ultimately reach?
Well, you guys know a gentleman by the name of Mark Baker, I'm sure. And, when in a conversation with him at Symposium, the question that he asked me was, how many high schools are there in the United States, Glenn? And I said, 25,000. He said, and why aren't we in all 25,000 yet? So obviously there's, we have an interest to be in as many as we can. We ultimately, if we were to be able to say over time, that 1 in 10 high schools across the United States were able to offer an aviation program. And we look to those hundreds of thousands of jobs that we have to fill just in commercial aviation alone, right? Not counting the drones and all of the other ancillary careers that are associated with it. That would be ultimately a long-term number that I think any group of any organization would be happy to hang their hat on. Is that going to happen in the next year to two? Probably not. But is that something that we see as a long-term possibility, that those kinds of numbers are what it's going to take, whether it's us, whether it's other organizations? Those are the numbers it's going to take to move that needle and get those kids into those careers that we so desperately need.
Outstanding. Glenn, we've got an interesting question here from Jennifer Johnson. Have you experienced an effective way that parents can encourage the schools to bring the program in? And we've just got a couple minutes left, but I'll tell you, in my case, I took the principal's son flying. And the kid's father sat in the back seat, could not have cared less. He was on his phone until we got to about 200 feet, and he realized I was not flying the plane. His son was. All of a sudden, he became intensely interested in that. His wife is the principal of the high school. That they saw the value then. They saw it in their own kid. I would say, I think in a lot of cases, if parents, and I'm looking for input from all of you, if a parent was to get with the local airport director and flight school or whatever's on the field and invite the administration of the high school down and say, there's something here because this leads to employment. I think that starts the conversation. It's not something that happens immediately, but it's something that starts. Does anybody have a personal experience or an idea they'd like to share for Jennifer's benefit?
I'd like to say that I've had a couple of parents reach out to me based off of a flyer that they saw at the airport restaurant talking about our high school program. And they said, hey, I'd like to get our school involved. They weren't even in San Diego County, but they saw it at the airport. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, give me the contact. And so I reached out to the school, and so that's an easy way just to reach out to one of us and have us connect with your high school. We'd be happy to do that. I mean, the word spreads because this is a great product. The kids absolutely love it. The teachers love it. It's free. And so parents who want to see their kids engaged in this kind of program can just step up and contact us, and we can help make that connection.
And what's that email address, Pat Brown? If someone wants to contact an ambassador, how in the world can they do it?
They can do that at ambassadors@aopa.org. That's ambassadors@aopa.org.
Guys, I can't thank you enough. And I'm sorry, Kay, I used guys in the non-denominational sense.
I'm one of the guys.
I really enjoyed this. I think we covered a lot of ground. For those of you watching, please do us the favor of giving us a thumbs up on Facebook or a like on YouTube. Share this video if you could with your friends, because I think, as you can see from the excitement that Eric and Glenn have and the enthusiasm the ambassadors have, this is a real thing that's actually going someplace, and your high school could adopt this, and kids in your school who might have been looking at a more pedestrian kind of work experience in life may find that there's a whole other future out there for them. They just didn't know how to get there, and now they can. Folks, thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. We will be back with you with another episode of Asking Ambassadors, second and fourth Tuesday of each month. So let's meet back here December 13th. It'll be 7 o'clock for me on a Tuesday night. It'll be 4 o'clock in the afternoon for Kay. And for some reason we cannot explain, it will be 6 o'clock at Pat's house. We're just going to do the best we can. We'll see you next time. And what's that curriculum, Eric? What's that email?
AOPA.org/curriculum.
Write it in now. See y'all next time. Take care.
See you guys.
Happy
Take care.
Thanksgiving.
That was fun. Bye-bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.